What I was thinking of when I thought of doing this talk, which is related to a project that I worked on, though I didn't work on this particular one, so I can't take any credit for it. But it's a CD and DVD project called Borderlands, which was filmed and recorded in the borderlands of China, in Western China, where Central Asian culture and Chinese culture are in strong interaction. And but going back to a more general idea about the ideas of cultural interaction, and there are many, many of them. There are wars, there are as Trippi said, relationships can be antagonistic. But the more I've been thinking a lot about the ways cultures intersect, because as I teach world literature, I find myself less and less being able to teach any literature in isolation, certainly not British, which I don't teach, of course, but anything. You can't teach Russian literature. You can't teach French literature. You can't teach anything, because everything is a product of collaboration. I love the work of Martin Nowak, who's an evolutionary biologist. What he has been doing, he's also a mathematician, is working on the idea of cooperation as a survival strategy, which actually surpasses competition. What he found is that, and he's working with the way cells interact, the way bacteria interact, all kinds of things, is that anytime you need to move to a more complex system, cooperation is what is needed. And so it's actually the cooperating systems that will evolve, rather than the competing ones might win on the short term, but the cooperators will end up in the long term. And then I have also here a quote from Wu Man, who's the musician I'm going to feature here. She's a Chinese musician who plays an instrument. It's called the pipa. And she said, the collaboration made my musical fantasy come true. Together with these musicians, we created a new musical voice. So again, thinking of something that's more complex, moving from cooperation into something new. I started thinking about the idea of transduction as a model for cultural interactions, and I started thinking, how could I visualize it? And Central Asia is literally the meeting points of waveforms. You have these huge civilizational waves that have influence there. From the east, you have the Mongol and Turkic nomad culture, a very close relationship with nature, and a sort of a culture that embodies and reflects this sort of relationship to the natural world. Coming from Iran, a country which has huge influence. You get centuries and centuries of a literary tradition, a written literary tradition formed around poetry and music, formed around the idea of a beautiful voice that would transcend reality and bring the whole audience into a kind of spiritual realm. Then from the southeast, you have China, and the great civilization that's sort of bringing organization and philosophy and a sort of structure into this area, and connecting it all, the Silk Road moving through. And again, there's all kinds of ways things move. There are invasions, there are aggressive movements, there are wars, there are walls, but on top of it all, you still have these feelings of these waves of culture coming together. And where you can really see that most is in music. The Borderlands project was created absolutely in order to explore this region of cultural interaction exactly between China and these different waves coming in from Central Asia. Chinese music has a pentatonic scale. It has a different scale than Central Asian music. So for 800 years, it's been going on one path. And at the same time, Central Asian musicians in Western China have been going on their own path. Imagine you have two different traditions with different scales, instruments that are in different keys in different scales, and also a whole different musical tradition, like say things that didn't even make sense to you. The musician Wu Man, who plays the pipa, wanted to meet with Central Asian musicians and see if they could play together. So as you can see, they're kind of working on it, trying to work it out. So it's a really nice image, the brother instruments separated for 800 years, and that happiness as they unite. What's found in translation is the surprise. So it's when those two waves get together and doesn't look like this wave, doesn't look like that wave, but it's the surprise created between them.